Instructor presence is also something that is somewhat unique to the ETSU course development process. I'm sure in the QM rubric as well as the OLC scorecard, they do both include elements of instructor presence and using the interactive or interaction triangle that we'll talk about in the next lesson. But here, what I'm talking about is situating yourself as a present and interactive figure. And so I talk about this a lot with my developers, and I felt like it was important to add in this guide. I want to encourage you to situate yourself as an active participant in your course. Think about the attendance and participation section of your syllabus. What are your expectations for student attendance and participation in the online environment? And if you notice, it's a little bit nebulous. You have to kind of define all of those not as obvious things, okay? And so when we're talking about instructor presence, how are you depositing yourself and your personality into this course? Because I, along with the department, think that your persona as an instructor is hugely impactful. And we see this all the time on student SAI comments. One of my colleagues received what I would consider the ultimate compliment for the online instructor. She received a comment where the student shared, I really enjoyed the class with Professor so-and-so. She made it feel like it wasn't an online class. And so what that tells me is the instructor was as actively engaged as the student. And so you think to yourself, well, Chelsea, what does that mean? How can I increase my instructor presence, or how can I improve the presence in my course? And it's truly very simple. You have to mindfully enact care and compassion into your course content. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, you are a present and consistent figure in the course. This presence can be in a multitude of different ways. It can be consistent weekly news announcements. It can be activity in this discussion board. Maybe you're interacting with the students. Some people feel uncomfortable interacting with their students. They want to take a more hands-off approach in the discussion board. That's fine, but you need to be present somewhere else. I want to know what essence you bring to your course, and your essence is going to encourage them to really help you cultivate that community of learning that sets a good online course apart from an okay online course, or it was average. It truly is that facilitation of community that is at the heart of instructor presence. And it can be very small things. Carefully written feedback for students that express care. Instead of, critiquing them and listing out kind of what they did wrong, approach it with what their strengths were, how they can improve. Because as the instructor, you're there to help facilitate their learning. You're there to help them make those connections, forge those connections, or navigate them in a way where they're able to have those kind of aha moments. They're able to make those connections. They're able to complete those critical thinking processes. And it's your guidance, your expertise, and even your personality. A lot of times the developers that I work with will get a little bit wrapped up in just like this idea of perfection. And I really want to be very clear about what my personal position is on this, as well as the position of ATS. And I think I referenced this in an earlier video, but we don't expect perfection from your course content. I mean, we want it to be professional. We want it to be nicely delivered. We want all of that. But the same, personality traits and quirks and little things that make you are just as important as the things that make the student, that set them individually apart as well. And so I think it's a disservice if an instructor isn't present in their course. So how can we create that presence? Like I said, the weekly news announcements, creating this instructor content. It can feel awkward at times. Some instructors are very uncomfortable with being on camera. To those people, I say, I totally respect that. I want you to do whatever you feel comfortable with. Whatever modality is most comfortable for you to communicate, I want you to champion that. But I don't want you to take it out just because you don't want to be on camera. I want you to instead situate yourself so that you can truly give your students an idea about who you are as a person, who you are as a scholar, who you are as a subject matter expert. Because the fact of the matter is, you were identified as the expert in that field. You either are a working professional in the field and teaching for us, you are a scholar or an academic subject matter expert in that particular discipline, and you have something valuable and you are valuable. And I want you to really try to articulate that value throughout your class in whatever medium you feel most comfortable with. Earlier in this resource guide, we have given you a plethora of technology resources. If video is not your thing, okay, do audio podcasts. If audio and video aren't your thing, okay, well, let's talk about interactive learning guides that create opportunities for your students to practice. But you can still have that conversational tone with them. Your approachability is very important. Students want to know that you care, and you show them you care every time you show up in your course. Every time they see your name, every time we interact with our students. That is important. That's building those relationships. That's fostering those relationships. And we want to see that in your course. So when we talk about instructor presence, I just want you to be mindful of how you're situating yourself in the course. I don't think that you should feel like you have to be very casual and unprofessional. I don't want you to think that at all. But instead, I want you to truly be an active participant in your course. You're facilitating the learning. You are there as the ultimate resource. You're there as the expert. And you're there as someone who knows what it feels like to truly apply the skills, the frameworks, the theories, and all of those academic things, how those things play out as you can apply them in the real world.